Hi everyone, today we'll be going through Git in VS Code. I'll go through both some Git fundamentals in command line as well as its visual interface in VS Code. Well, see, I have this childhood photo of me and I wish I could go back in time even to this version of myself, with this brain, but it's not possible in real life. Well, Git makes it possible for software. You can go back in history to any commit, to any state of your project. This is why it's so helpful. But let's get right into it. To start with, you're gonna need VS Code and Git installed. I'll share the presentation below so you can just follow the links and install them. But I'll also show the whole process itself. Alright, I'll go to VS Code website. Download the one you need for your operating system. In my case, it's Windows. Unfortunately, download unverified file, but it's a great code editor anyway, even for beginners like me too. Once it's installed, you can open the execution file, you can read the whole license, add to path, you can stick with defaults. If you don't need anything else, maybe create a desktop icon and press install, but I won't do it this time. Now we also need to install Git, which is a separate software version control system. It will automatically update itself as well, which is very convenient. Also choose your operating system. Again, you need yes, allow. So Git comes in with some commands from Bash, which is Linux scripting language. Yeah, all of these. Well, you don't have to include some of them, but again, it's always better to stick with defaults if you're not sure. You press next. You can use Vim, or I prefer Visual Studio Code as Git's default editor. It'll be a great help. We can override the default branch name for new repositories. Stick with main. Git from the command line and also from third-party software. Doesn't really matter for our use case. Use native. Yeah. Check out Windows style commit Unix style linings. Yes. 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 And installing. It's good to install even if you have it already because it will automatically update it. So remove the old version, install the newest one. But it also updates itself frequently. It will offer you to install a new Git update, which is very good. Now, Git is a program, and it's added to your path, so it can be opened in any terminal. Setup is finished installing Git on your computer, Finish, and now you can run it from Git bash. So I just pressed Windows key to open the menu, and I'm choosing Git bash. Here I am. And again, you can work with Git from this terminal. Git is the basic command. That's how you verify that you have it installed. Or you can say git version. Git version Windows, right? Or you can use any terminal you like. We can open CMD and it will still work here. I can say git version. Same thing. So what is Git again? It's a popular version control system, maybe the most popular. It was created by Linus Torvalds in 2005, who's also Linux maintainer and creator, and it has been maintained by Junior Hamano since then. It is used for tracking code changes, who made changes, and collaboration. Well, so what I'll do, I'll create a sample folder for my project. I'll call it git in VS Code. I can open up. If I click here and copy the path, Ctrl-A, Ctrl-C, and switch to VS Code window, press Ctrl-K, Ctrl-O, I can enter it here and press enter and select folder. The other way around, I can just click open folder on the welcome window, and even if you don't get this welcome window, you can always go to the command palette of VS Code, Ctrl-Shift-P, and say open folder, and see it's the same shortcut, Ctrl-K, Ctrl-O. And again, copy the path, click enter, select folder, and I'm in the same folder now. Here's the title. Of course, I invite you to follow along with the steps provided, so you can actually practice yourself, which is the most important thing. And we'll start with Git configuration before we do anything, because it's used for tracking who made changes in software. That's how you need to tell Git who you are. And we'll start with initializing Git repository and then configuring your name and email. Bear in mind, you can't do it through VS Code. And I'll show you why in a minute. But first what I'll do, I'll disable this irritating AI window. I need to go to extensions with Ctrl-Shift-X or just click on it and search Copilot. And there is GitHub Copilot, but there is also GitHub Copilot Chat. I'll disable both of them. I'll need to restore extensions. Nice. Now we can just hide secondary sidebar. Okay. I'll just go and create a new file. For example, readme for my project in Markdown extension. Yep, create file. And I'll say heading 1, my project. Yeah, and you can see this white circle. It means your file is not saved. You'll need to press Ctrl-S to save it every time. But instead of doing this manually, I just go to the file, click autosave. So now if I make any changes, it's saved automatically by default. Right now it's just a normal folder, but we'll enable Git by going to source control, Ctrl-Shift-J. Here it says it's not a Git repository at the moment. You can just click Initialize repository, or what you can also do, you need to open your terminal. You can do so by pressing Ctrl-J or Ctrl single quote, yeah. Or you can go to View, and instead of Command Palette, which is VS Code built-in Command Palette, you need to go to View Terminal. And this is PowerShell, but at the start we installed Git. So here we need to click on the drop-down and choose Git Bash specifically. So we can also use some bash commands, which can be convenient. And I'll close PowerShell. Yep. And I'll type git init, which will create a hidden Git folder. Initialize empty Git repository at this path, yeah, .git. And now, here the source control has started. Now we are starting to use Git in our project. Now you can see a hidden .git folder, which tracks all of the changes for your project and makes Git works. In order to use any of Git features, your project must be a Git folder. You must have initialized an empty Git repository. But alternatively, if I remove it, yeah, even if you break something, like removing this folder, you can say git init again. Now it will reappear. But the other way around, you could click initialize empty Git repository here, and it would still create .git folder. The same thing. To view Git configuration, we're gonna type git config list. And this is all of my configuration stored in a text file. To move this around, press F forward, end. And to close this, press Q. And here we already have my name and email, but if you just installed Git for the first time and VS Code, you don't have it. That's why you need to set it through git config user.email and put in your email. I recommend using single quotes in bash because they prevent any wildcard expansion or any problems. In the same way, user.name. And just to show you an example, if I put the wrong name, for example, Bob, and I'm like, oh no, what do I do now? I'm using the git config command again to list the configuration. Oh, it's still here. I probably was in the wrong place. Q, and I'll clear my terminal window, and I'll say, I'll just use arrow up for my previous command. I'll say git config list, and I need to search to the end, and here's my name, Bob. Now I want to change it. Just use the command again. In the same way, just say git config user.name and enter a proper name. So if you make a typo, you can always change it. Just enter the command again. It's not a big deal. I'll clear the terminal window and list my config. Press F to expand the whole thing. And here's my name. Good. Now you're ready to start using Git. If you don't see the .git folder in your file system, go to View, Show, Hidden Items in your File Explorer if you're on Windows, and then you'll be able to see it. This is a clean VS Code and Git installation, and to show you what happens if you don't set git config, I'll create a new file. In the same way, Git sees the untracked file, so I'll go ahead and stage my changes and commit them. But I get an error because I need to specify my name and email. Even if I still try through the command line interface, so I'll stage my files and commit them, I'm still getting the same error, so make sure you always do your git config. The most important thing to understand as a beginner is there are different Git environments. These are states of your files at the moment. For example, there is working directory. When you make any change, add a new line or new character, write some code. Then there is staging area, when you actually go to include those changes in your next commit. And after you make a commit, there is repository, which is clean, no changes. So now, in my folder, I'm in working directory. I changed something. I created a new file. It noticed that there is a new file in the repository, and it says untracked. There is a green U symbol, which stands for untracked, and means Git doesn't know anything about this file. It sees it for the first time. But if I, for example, decided to remove this file, right-click and delete. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Then there is no changes. This is a clean repository. Nothing's happening. You can always check with the Git status command or see in the source control view of VS Code. On branch main, Yeah, we're on main branch. I'll talk about branches and commits and staging later. There are no commits yet, and there is nothing to commit. We can create copy files and you git add to track. That's right. And now I'll restore my file, because when you delete a file in VS Code, it's first moved to the bin. So if I say Ctrl-Shift-P or just go and view command palette, I'll say local history, but don't press delete all, please. Say find entry to restore. Here. And it saves a history of all of my deleted files. I need to search for my README. And if there is no path, it means it's in current folder. So it was deleted in current folder. Yeah, I'm looking in my bin, so I can restore it now. But in future, when you make commits, you can do it with Git instead of using local history in VS Code. Here. And it tracked my file saved at 724. Yep. Here it is. I review it, and now, and it says file saved December 24, that's right. I can click here to restore contents. It will discard any unsaved changes, beware, but I don't have any unsaved changes, so because my Git repository is clean, I can click restore. Good. What is Git staging, also called index? Staging is like dating. Before we marry, we date. It's like waiting room for your changes. There are different ways to describe it, but generally it's when you think what changes do you want to include in the next saved snapshot or checkpoint of your files, or what changes you don't want to include. So Git gives you this kind of granular control over your project files. We want to stage our files first before committing. Let's jump into VS Code, and I can say here, it prompts me use git add to track. So I want to track this file, my readme. So I'll say git add dot for current folder, or I can explicitly mention the file name, readme.md. Good. And now we have staged changes. Yep. Index added. Added to staging environment. We're just working on our current commit. I added my files to staging, but nothing really happened. Oh, only its status. Now it's index added. It's a different VS Code status. So it describes what's going on with the file. Yeah, because if I go and create another file, new text file, and say description of the project, for example, Control S to save, it's gonna be untracked, while readme is already added to staging, so I want to include it in future save. I haven't included my description. The same thing you can see in your source control tab. There are some changes which are not staged, while readme is staged. So now let's talk about commits. Commit is like marriage. You decided that's it. You're sure you want to be with this person to the end of your life or whatever, but in terms of Git, you decided that you want to keep these changes in this state of your project. It's the save point, checkpoint, snapshot, save state, whatever you want to call it. And bear in mind, commit has an ID, so each commit is created with a unique ID through an algorithm. And remember, Git doesn't save the files themselves, only the changes made to the files. And you can always go back to your previous commit if you need to. That's the point of version control. And one good commit is one good change to your project. So I think my commit is pretty good. My change, I created a readme for my project and I don't want to include this description. I'll go ahead and say I'll do it through command line first. Git commit, and with M option you can provide a message to your commit, which is a requirement. So if you don't provide a message, commit will be discarded, it will be aborted, which I'll show you. You have to have a message for your commit. And I can say first commit, add readme. Good! Here I see it in this graph. And I also see the shortened commit ID if I hover over here. Git also explains one file change, 3 insertions. But bear in mind, my description wasn't included because I didn't stage it. Yeah, I didn't decide that I want to keep it in my next commit. So now, if I make some changes, mess it up, oh no, what do I do? So, when we get the new status, because I changed my readme, it's modified. If I'm not sure what's going on, I can just say git status. Here, changes are not staged for commit. Yeah, I modified the readme, and there is also an untracked file. And you can granularly include what's going to be committed. But for example, I don't want to save any of that. What do I do through command line? Here, it says git restore to discard changes in working directory. So remember, I'm doing a full workflow. First I'm in working directory, change something. Now I don't want to go to staging and I don't want to commit it. But I want to return to my repository clean, so there are no changes. And I'm back at my first commit. So I can just say git restore dot for all of my project files, for my current folder, yeah? Good. But restore doesn't delete untracked files. If I say git status, right, I need to delete it manually. And I can do it through interface, discard changes. You can restore this file from recycle bin, that's right. And now, if I say git status, my repository is clean. Yeah, I'm at my first commit again, and there are no changes. My readme is not modified anymore. Now I want to show you a full walkthrough but visual way. Yeah, I'll make some changes and see VS Code highlights them with green, and you can even click over here to see local changes. In this case, just empty space. And I can revert, show next change, show the previous one. Nothing happens, but I can revert and it deleted the change. But I'll say it's about Git. Again, my readme is modified and the repository is not clean anymore. So I'm going back from 3 to 1 to my working directory because I changed something. Right, so I'm happy with these changes. I'll go to source control again with Ctrl-Shift-J, conversely, yep. And I'll say update readme. Commit, oops, but there are no staged changes to commit. So first I need to stage my changes, yeah. I can say yes, never, I want to cancel. And I'll click here to stage my changes or stage all of my changes first. And now I am able to commit them on my main branch. Here, this is my second commit. I can view my commits with git log. Yeah, and it's the same thing as in graph. And for example, see this code here? Oh, I can open commit through here. Here you go. And here I can view what happened, what changed, yes. I wanted to mention this code. Oh, like this. It's the same as this here. Yeah, so it's literally the same thing. And it says the author, yeah, my name and email, the date, time, and description. If you're not sure what's going on in the repository, always use git status or git log. And if I try to use git status again, my repository is clean because there are no changes in source control as well. I'll take it one step further and make another change. It's about git in VS Code. Again, my file is modified. I recommend practicing all of these step by step following my video. It will actually make it stick in your mind. I'll go ahead and press commit. Again, I need to stage those changes, so I'll press stage all, but don't click discard. But yeah, VS Code will prompt you if you want to do so. I can open changes to view them. Pretty good. And now I'll click stage all changes. And what if I don't put any message here? Click commit. Okay, there is a new file opened, which is Git's default built-in text editor. So you can put your commit message in here. Yes, and in comments it mentions what's going on. And the point is, if I don't put anything in here and just close it, commit operation was cancelled due to empty commit. That's my point. You can't put empty commit. In the same thing in command line, if you say git commit, again, there is a text editor opened. And if you click close, same thing, aborting commit due to empty commit message. And notice how there is a red cross which says command executed and failed, exit code 1. So normally when commands in bash fail, they return exit code of 1, which means the command is not successful. It didn't happen, yeah? So with my previous commands, they just executed and it was successful. Yeah, they produced the desired output. But here, if you hover over here, the command wasn't successful because I just left an empty commit message. So now I'll click commit, and sometimes I prefer this editor because if you go far too long, change description of my README for my new repository, and here at some point it will start to highlight in red because commits generally should be under 30 characters. So in VS Code it prompts you to keep them neat, but what you could do, like you could change, so the main line must be less than 30 characters, change README, and then you could explain. First, and now it can be longer than 30 characters, but the first line must be quick and straight to the point. So now I can click accept commit message or just close. And again, I have another commit. That's good. I'll just mention briefly why I use imperative. So when writing a commit message, ask, does this sentence work after this commit will update README? This commit will change README. Sounds good. Yeah, grammatical English, as far as I know, as a non-native speaker, yeah. But bad examples are edit user login or fixes bug in navbar, so like past tense or present tense, and good examples are just the fact, the imperative. Yeah, add user login, fix navbar. Why? Because it's consistent with Git's own output. Git uses imperative move everywhere, merge branch main, revert fix memory leak, you'll see it everywhere, yeah? So that's why your commits would blend naturally into Git's history when you follow the same style. And it's also a clear action-oriented meaning. So it directly answers the question, what does the commit do? Yeah, so it's about the project. It's not what you did, like I added authentication. No. This commit will add authentication. That's it. Just simple and easy. And also if you forgot to add something or maybe made a typo in your commit message, you can use git commit amend and fix the last commit message or add different files, changes, and so on. I'll show an example. I want to include an exclamation mark here. I won't make a new commit for this. I'll just say git commit amend. I don't think you can do it through VS Code, but there is a way around this. And just press enter. Again, there is an editor gonna be opened, and I can also change my commit message. Change readme now. Press accept, and here my commit message changed to change readme now. I'll open commit. Oh, I'm just wondering why my exclamation mark wasn't added to the commit, and that's a good example. I need to stage all of my changes first, so they're added to my next commit. So I'll go ahead and click enter git commit amend again. Close. And now, that's it. Now my changes are taken to my new commit. Now you'll see that there is exclamation mark. And another commit wasn't created for this. I just changed the last commit I made. So that's pretty good to know. So I want to talk a little about the head. We'll talk about the head pointer. So Git maintains a variable for referencing called head. It points to the latest commit and branch. So in this case, my head is currently at this commit because it's the most recent commit. Yeah. So if I clear the terminal and say git status on branch main, so my repository is clean, and I'll say git log, we can see that head points to main, to my main branch. This is the branch I'm currently on. And it points to this commit. D051, D051, same thing. This is my latest commit. So if I want to reset, to go back, to redo this commit, you can do this with your personal projects, but with team projects, you don't want to interfere with your team's work, you need to agree with your teammates. Be careful with this. But because we're just experimenting, it's okay. So I'll say git reset specify soft, so you'll get your files here, your changes here, or otherwise, if you just say git reset, the changes will be deleted. Git reset soft, if I just say head, nothing happened. I need to specify my last commit. I want to do my last commit like this. Here. Stage, unstage, so I have my staged changes, yeah. And if I discard them, over here, discard, discard. I removed my changes completely, and now I'm back as it was, and I'll say the same thing again. Again, you can stage them through command line with git add, and then your changes are staged, and you want to restore, unstage them. You can say git restore, and when you say git status, git prompts you what to do, so you don't have to remember the commands by heart. Staged everything. Now it's unstaged, and again I can say git status. I don't know what to do. It says git restore to discard my changes. Good. I want to git restore dot, and now my changes are completely removed from source control. Okay, now I want to show you a visual way of how to undo your last commit. So I'm at update readme commit. This is where my head points now. If I say git log, you can also say git log one line for a brief explanation without long commit. You see, just a short line and shortened ID of your commit. So my head points to main, points to this commit. What I want to do, move back to my first commit. I can just go into Command Palette with Ctrl-Shift-P or View Command Palette and say Git, and there are different Git commands available, Git commit, commit all, and so on. But it's only a small part of Git commands. Yeah, there is a lot more in command line. And recently used is my undo last commit, so I can just enter undo last commit. Exactly. Press. And the same thing happened. My changes were reverted. I get them here in my editor, and I can just remove them. I can unstage them through visual interface or with git restore. I'll just do it here. I'll unstage all changes and discard them as well. Now I'm back at my first commit. And there is some sort of a bug. I can put a commit message in here, even though there is nothing going on. I have a clean repository, so if I say git status, it's clean, yeah. But if I put a commit message and say commit, Git says there are no changes to commit. But I can create empty commit. I wouldn't need this, yeah. That's fine. This is just a brief take on VS Code Git Status Indicators. As you have seen already, there is untracked, which is when Git doesn't know anything about the file when we just added it. There is modified when we had a clean repository. So remember, there is a clean repository state. And when you make some changes, you go back to working directory. And then you need to stage those changes. And then after you commit them, again, your repository is clean. There are also other states like deleted, renamed, and conflicted. I'll talk more about merge conflicts later on. But feel free to check it out if you just follow the link in my presentation, and you'll be taken to, well, AI-generated overview of these codes which I made for myself before and review them. Also, there is again the workflow of working directory, staging area, and repository, and other tips. At times you don't want Git to track some of your files. For example, it may be your personal notes or some configuration files, and you simply don't want to share them to the GitHub repository. That's why you need to use .gitignore. But you still want to keep them in the projects folder for some reason. And the reason I want to talk about this so early, because it's highly important that you create gitignore at the start of the project creation or before you add those files you want to ignore. Once you commit them, they are in project history and there is no going back. You can always go back to the history and view those files from the commit. There are a lot of templates online, but remember, Bash Linux scripting language rules apply, and I'll show you an example of how you can write .gitignore. So I'm back in my project and I'll go to the Explorer and create a new file .gitignore. And see VS Code realizes it's a Git file, and well, now there are untracked files and I need to stage them. Yeah. So what I'll do, I'll say ignore my notes. Yeah, and this is a comment in .gitignore. And I'll go and create file notes.txt. Once I've created this file, like my personal notes, it doesn't matter, I need to go back to .gitignore and specify the rule of which files I want to ignore. And of course you can use the exact file name, but it's not the best idea. So I can say notes.txt and see, now it's grayed out. So I remove this, it's treated as a new file. Yeah, but once I add its name, it's grayed out, so it's ignored by Git. If I say git status, see, the Git says there is a new file gitignore, but there is no such file notes.txt because Git simply ignores it. And the same way in source control tab in VS Code. I'll stage all of my changes again. A better way to write .gitignore is to say all, like any characters, any amount, notes, this way. Because then, for example, if I'll have a folder called notes, and in this folder, if I have these notes in there, I want to move them in there, they will also be ignored because of bash expansion. It's good to know. So now I'll just, again, stage my changes with git add current folder, or simply click stage all and commit them. And I'll say edit.gitignore. And now I simply have those notes in my project folder, but they are not tracked by Git and they're not in commit history. Let's talk about Git branches. These are different versions of your project. For me, this is the best Git feature of all times, because, for example, I can have one version of my project where it's built with HTML and CSS, and then there is a different branch where it's built with Bootstrap, where I try to rewrite my own CSS with Bootstrap classes. I can think of so many use cases where it might be helpful, but the main one is, as industry standard, you would have your main branch, where production lives, the branch linked to the website hosting, for example. Then you'll have the dev branch. Dev is the place for experimenting, adding new features. Once they are approved by the boss, for example, you can just merge the dev branch into main. And now it's automatically hosted on the website. And of course, the previous name for main branch was master, but we don't want colonial vibes here. We'll use main. What I mean by that, I'll show you in a minute. But actually, we already saw that there is main. Over here, it's our main branch. And if I say branch, there is a few available Git commands in VS Code by default. Yeah, and I went to command palette by Ctrl-Shift-P or view command palette. But again, why do we want to use Git branches? So we're not scared to break anything in production. Push to commit, suddenly everything fails, site stops responding. Don't worry, it's dev branch. Yeah, it's not, you didn't break the actual site, it's only development. So you can feel free to experiment, keep different versions of your projects, and so on. And finally, a typical workflow would involve starting with a repository with main branch, creating dev, a new branch from the main, yes, and then you can add new stuff, new commits, new features on the dev branch, and then you simply merge dev into main. This kind of workflow is what I want to show you. So a typical branch workflow would involve the developer creating the default main branch, starting Git in your project, just like we did a couple of minutes ago, and then create a dev branch, which is a direct copy of main. They have the same commits, same state, completely equal. After that, you switch to dev to develop the project. You add new features, experiment, break stuff, fix it, and try again. And then you can simply switch back to main and merge the dev branch into main. After that, these branches are equal again, and dev can be safely deleted. This way, you will not break anything in production, you're not scared anymore, and so on. There are a lot of benefits to it. This kind of workflow is what I want to show you in VS Code now. Well, we already saw branches. Yeah, for example, here it says publish branch, or we see main here or main here. So we are currently working on our main branch, but if you're called master and you want to avoid colonial vibes, you just say git branch m option for renaming a branch and say something else. Here, my branch was main, now it's called new. In the same way, you can do it through the commands palette. say git rename branch and call it new. You can provide a branch name or otherwise press escape to console, and I'll press enter. Now my branch is called main again. This is a graph view. Here we can see the commits from different branches, also current history item, yeah, or from only one branch or just all of them. I'll just click all and OK, so I can see all branches all together, and you'll see why is that helpful. Or if we click here, we can see all of our branches and we can create new branches here. I'll start with command line. So I'm happy with my main branch, but I want to develop new features and new files. And I'll say git branch, which will create a new branch, and I'll give it a name dev, because development branch. If I view all of my branches with the command git branch option A, I will be able to see that now I have two branches, but I am currently on main. And the visual interface says the same thing. I have two branches, but I'm currently on main. And if I click here, I can see my dev branch, and they point to the same commit for now. So they're the same. But now I'll switch to my dev branch. I'll say git switch dev. And you can use single quotes or double quotes in bash, different rules as well. Alternatively, an older command, git checkout. I'm switching back to main, but I'll prefer modern syntax, git switch dev. Now I'm in dev branch. I checked out dev branch. Yeah, I switched from main to dev. So now I can do my changes. I'm not scared to break anything. I can say I want to develop my own website here. Whatever. And again, I'll stage and commit those changes. I'll say git commit change readme. Okay. And now I see that this is my dev branch. This is the reference, the latest commit, the head of my dev branch, which points to this commit. But my main is behind. It's one commit behind dev. Also here note, it shows that I'm on the dev branch. Right, and I have two branches, but now they're pointing to different commits. Remember, this is the graph where we view the history as a tree, as a list. And I'm viewing all of my branches, but if I choose dev only and click OK, now I see dev only without main branch. But if I choose, for example, main only, now I see main branch only. Although I'm on dev branch, so I'm physically on dev branch, but I see commits for the main branch. I'll just say all, so I'm not confused. So if you're wondering which branch are you on now, just always look down here in the bottom left corner and click here, and you'll see that you're on dev branch. I want to switch back to main because I made some changes that are going well, and I want my main branch to reflect my successful development branch. I'll just say git switch main, or alternatively I can just say checkout. And now I switched to main branch, and here we'll see that now dev has moved forward. It's one commit forward compared to the main branch, the branch we are currently on. This is here it says in the terminal, and here it says in VS Code interface. What I'll do, I'll simply merge my dev branch into main. And this we can do with the merge command, git merge dev, because I'm merging dev branch into my main branch, because dev has moved forward. Alright, fast forward, 1 file change, 3 insertions, 1 deletion, and now my changes are the same on both branches, because I see all history item references, so I see the changes for both dev and main, and they're now pointing to the same commit. If I say git log, and I can see my head points to both branches, so the latest commit is the same on both branches. But I'm currently on main branch. Now, because they're the same, and we can check it, switch back to dev, and yeah, they are the same. Here it says dev and main. I can switch back to main, and I can simply say git branch delete option and delete my dev branch. That's it. Now I have only my main branch, and this would be a typical workflow on your local development system or even in a team, and this is highly helpful. I'll show you how you may do this through the visual interface as whole. So what I'll do, I want to create a new branch. I'll say Ctrl+Shift+P, open the command palette and create branch from, I can create from my head, so from my latest commit, or from my main branch, because it's literally the same thing. I'll say my main branch, and I'll say development. Now I'm confused because, for example, Ctrl+J, I'm not using the terminal. But here it says development, so I'm on my development branch. Yep. I'll make some changes to the README again. I'll start with practicing Git. Git tracks those changes. I'll stage all of them. I'll commit them. Update README. I've committed those changes, and now my development branch again one step further from my main branch. Again, I want to switch back to main because I'm finished with my development branch. I'll say view commands palette, and if you type in branch, you'll see all the available commands for Git branch. And I want to switch, and we can do this through here. If we click here and press main, now I switch to my main branch. Yeah, so that's how you can switch branches in VS Code. Back to main. And here I'll say git merge. Here it is. And I want to merge my development branch into my main branch. I'm checking that I'm on my main branch, and now I can safely merge my development branch. Here it is. My changes were added here, and now my branches are the same, and I can simply delete the branch, development. Great! Now I only have my main branch. So it's the same thing, but through visual interface, if you prefer it. Now we'll discuss Git push and pull. Don't feel terrified at first. There is a lot of new terminology, I know. It'll start to make sense gradually. So there is a remote. We have our local repository, but remote is our remote repository, the one we'll create on GitHub to manage our project history. So we're gonna link our local repository to the remote, and this relates to a typical branch workflow. First, you make some changes, and after you simply push them to GitHub repository. So GitHub repository becomes an ultimate source of truth for your project. It becomes the main point where all developers push their changes, and this way develop the project. We also pull the changes. We take them from GitHub repository to our local repository, so it's reflected on both repositories. So pulling, it's when you change something on the remote repository, you must pull changes to VS Code, simply take them from remote to your local repository, and push, when you make changes locally, you want to push them to the remote repository, so the remote repository is the same as your local one. What I'll do, I'll create a new repository on GitHub. I'll say github.com/new, and this way I'm able to create a new repository, and I'll say git in VS Code, make it public. I'll just create the repository. Here, as you might have seen already, GitHub provides you with some basic commands to start with. There are different options. You can create a new repository from the command line, or you can push an existing repository, and I'll do the second way. Back into VS Code, we're gonna start with command line. We're gonna add a new remote, which is a reference to your remote repository on GitHub. I'll just copy the HTTPS URL, open VS Code again, and say git remote add, paste in the URL. Oh, we need to give it a name. And the default name for your remotes is origin, git remote add origin. Oh, and for this you need to be signed into your GitHub. You can just go in here to accounts and click sign in if you're not signed in yet. We can check that we added a remote with the command git remote show, and then there is origin. Now, I want to push all of my changes, all of my project files and history to this remote repository. I'll say git push u origin main. Okay. And now branch main set up to track origin main. So our local branch will track the remote main branch. Yeah, I'll include the u option, so I don't need to say git push u origin main all the time. I can just say git push from now on. Everything up to date. And now if we check the repository, reload GitHub, and here you go. Your project is now uploaded to GitHub from command line. In my presentation, I mentioned that we always pull first, so we take changes from remote to our local repo, which is, if it's a team project, someone's currently working on new changes, and you may have an old state of changes. You always need to check with the remote, so your local branch, your local project matches the remote project. For example, I'll make some changes. I'll delete this line. I'm going to do it through GitHub. Commit changes. But I don't have those changes reflected in my local repo. Yeah, here I have my 4 commits, but on my remote I have 5 commits. Here it says 5 commits. Another update readme. And to reflect this, I need to say git pull. And when you added your project to the remote, when you pushed it to the remote, there is a cloud appeared, yeah, that it's main and origin main. They point to the same commit, but it's not the case now. I'll say git pull. Here we go. Another commit appeared. So always pull changes first when you're working on a team project, especially. Important note, don't forget to commit before pushing changes. VS Code will prompt you if you make some changes and they are not saved as a commit, and you will try to push, it will say everything up to date. Why? Because your commits are the same with your remote commits, with your remote repository, but you don't have those changes reflected on your remote. That's why you need to make a new commit, and then you can push them safely. So if I say a new commit, I need to stage my changes, say commit, and now I can sync them. I can push one commit to origin main. This will pull and push your commits to origin main, yeah? So it pulls first and then pushes. Great, and I had outgoing changes, and if I check back at my repository, it's reflected here, my new commit, always check, yes. And now I'll show you the visual way. I'll say git remote remove origin. I will not use it anymore. And notice how here it says publish branch. Exactly, I want to publish this branch, and then I choose it's either a public or private repository. Yeah, and it automatically gives it a name, so it will automatically create the repository for you. I'll say publish to GitHub repository, public one, publishing, uploading files, successfully published. And I can open this on GitHub, and here the same repository but with a different name through visual interface. Here I'm creating a new file on my remote repository, and I do this so we can pull from VS Code later. So I'll just commit my changes. I added a license to my project. Yeah. And now, again, our remote repository is 7 commits, but the local one is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's only 6 commits, so it's 1 commit behind the remote repository. And because we're doing this visually, we want to go to View, Commands Palette, and say pull, git pull. Exactly. And here our changes were pulled. In the same way, you can do through these options here. You can fetch from all remotes, pull, push, and so on. Nothing was changed because now they are the same. Yeah, main is the same as origin main. Origin is the reference to the remote repository. And push our local changes to the remote through these controls here. All right? If you reached this far, I want to say thank you in the first place. I hope this tutorial is really helpful for you. And well done! Like, it's been a long way and a lot of concepts to grasp at first time. I want to elaborate a little bit on Git merge and the merge conflicts I was on about. It's when project state differs from a local repository and remote, or differs from different branches. And VS Code provides really convenient editor for this. Here, I'll show you the example of merge conflict when merging branches. I will create a new branch. Create branch from main. Dev. While I'm on my dev branch, I'll make a new commit and I'll change this line. I will delete here. Keep it like I want to develop my own. Yes. I need to stage my changes, and now I can commit them. Now I'll switch back to main through here, through visual interface. And we can see that dev is 1 commit forward our main branch. And I'll continue this line. I'll make a different change. Stage my changes, commit them, add more detail to readme, commit, here we can see that they differ. Git shows this for us. The Visual Studio Code interface shows that these branches differ. And I can also sync my changes, but first I want to merge dev into main. So I'll do git merge, and I'm on my main branch, so I'm merging dev into main. I'll choose dev, and we get a merge conflict. Oh no, please resolve them before committing your changes. And this provides this kind of interface for you. Current change is what you have on your current branch in your current setup, and incoming change comes from the branch you're merging. So in this case, from dev branch. Here it says dev, it comes from dev branch. While my head, the latest commit on main, points to this change. And now I need to choose which changes I want to keep. I can choose accept current change, so I want to take this change, the change I made, not the change from dev. I'll say accept current change, and here it's automatically chosen. But if I Control Z, I can do it manually. I can accept current change through deleting this and this, like this, right? So you can do it both ways. And of course, I find it easier visually. Alternatively, you can accept the incoming change. And of course, you may have a lot of similar conflicts, especially when working with different people, make different commits, but normally Git tries to merge them automatically together. But there might be conflicts like this, when the same line has different changes on different branches. And I'll say accept current change. And now I can just recommit. So merge branch dev, stage all merge changes, and I can continue. The dev branch was merged into main. Git automatically made this message, merge branch dev. And we successfully, no, you, if you practice, can successfully solve your first merge conflict, or not first, 100. So well done. But remember, normally this would happen when working with remote repositories and different people. I just show you an example, simulating a merge conflict with my own commits on different branches. Finally, we're almost there. This is one of the most beneficial commands in Git as well, Git Diff, where you can compare between various commits, branches, and so on. There is extensive VS Code and Git Lens support. Git Lens is a powerful VS Code extension. If you want more commands from Git to be available in VS Code, then you might want to install it. You already saw Git Diff during this tutorial. I'll clear my terminal. If I make some changes in my README again, stage them, Git tracks those changes, and I'll say git diff head. So I'm comparing my current changes with my latest commit, because remember, head pointer points to my latest commit, to the merge branch dev. This is where my head is at. And it shows the lines added. So I added a new line with some text. Alright? What you can do is use the visual interface. I'll close my terminal, Ctrl J, and you can just click on your changes, on the changes you made, and you'll see that there is a line removed, a new line added with this text. Right? And here I want to highlight different VS Code functionality. Note how it says index, which means staged changes. So if they weren't staged, I unstage them. And it says working tree. It's our working directory. It's just changes I made. I haven't staged them yet. And here there is different options. I can open the file, because this is the view and this is the actual file. I can revert block, or I can stage block. Revert, discard those changes, yes. Let's return, Ctrl Z. I can go to next change or previous one, but here I have only one change, obviously. And you can split editor to the right if you want two windows. So this is very helpful, and I really prefer this kind of built-in editor for changes. And the last command I'll show you today is git reset, which I already used in this tutorial. I use it to go back one commit, but you can go back to any commit using its commit ID. Yeah, know that natively in VS Code you can only undo last commit, which I also did in this tutorial, and there is no native support for further functionality, but that's where GitLand's extension comes into play. If you want more functionality, use the command line or the GitLand's extension. Let me see if I can copy this here. And go to VS Code. I will just discard my changes, open my terminal, Ctrl-J, and I'll list all of my commits, git log one line, and suppose I want to go back to this commit. What I'll do to the update readme uppercase, I'll copy its code, I'll say git reset soft, paste the ID. Here we are. I went back straight to this commit, so now my main is behind my origin main and my dev branch, which I created before. But I have my changes staged here. It's because I did a soft reset. But what if I make a hard reset? Well, let's see. I am reverted back to this commit and my changes are simply removed. They're just deleted. Right? This is git reset, and natively in VS Code we can only undo last commit like so. And now I'm back one commit further. So always look at your graph, because your graph is the same as you entering git log one line, which is the same. Yeah, I'm at change readme commit or git status. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and this was at least some help to you. You can leave a like, a comment, reach out to me if you wish. I leave links to my website and GitHub repository for this video in the description. And also check out the sources, which are very helpful for beginners. Even me, I refer to them pretty often. And if you wish to use this presentation in any way, distribute it, change it to your liking, you can do so by referencing me as author. Well, thank you so much.